Bonjour à tous. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Unconventional Online French Lessons with Madame Ugo. Here, I teach French in an unconventional manner, especially as it relates to making it very easy for people to understand. So please like our page, follow us, comment, share with your friends and your family. So today, I am going to be talking on the topic of verbs. So we are going to look at how we conjugate our verbs in French. But before I talk about verb conjugation, I want to first of all start by defining what a verb is. Simply put, a verb is an action word. Now, having said all of that about verbs, the next thing I would like to talk about in terms of verb conjugation, in case you're wondering what a verb conjugation is. So a verb conjugation typically is the transformation of your verb from one grammatical tense to the other using the various either subject pronouns or you are using the subject nouns. For example, you want to say, I eat the food. You are conjugating the verb to eat in the present tense. If you say, I will eat the food, you are conjugating the verb to eat in the future tense. If you say, I would eat the food, you have conjugated that verb in the conditional tense. So in French, that is what we call verb conjugation, as well as in English. Now, in dealing with your verb conjugation, you are either using your first person subject pronoun or your second person subject pronoun and so on and so forth. So it is important to understand all of those dynamics before we go further. Having cleared that out of the way, I would like to also talk about the various subject pronouns that we have in French, as you will not be able to conjugate your verbs in such a manner that they are grammatically correct if you don't understand the concept of your subject pronouns. If you haven't watched my video lessons where I have explained what a subject means, please try and watch either the lesson 2 or the lesson 3. So, without much ado, I will start by first listing all of the subject pronouns that we have got in French. So the first one, je. Je means I in French. The second one is tu. Tu means you. And this is the you use for one person and in an informal situation or environment, or someone you have an informal relationship with. The next one is il. Il means he. When you use this with a human being, it can also mean it when you use it with a non-human being. Elle. This means she. It also means it when you use it with a non-human being. Now, the question is, when do I know when to use il as it and when to use elle as it? So this is the one you use when you are talking about a masculine singular noun, while this you use it for feminine singular noun. And the next one we have is on. On can mean one. And on can also mean we. When do we use this? We usually use this in French when we are making reference to a general situation. For example, you say something like this: one needs to be careful these days. This is the one you are talking about. One does not understand what is going on. This is the one we are talking about. So you use this one for general reference. And the next subject pronoun we have is nous. Nous means we, and it's usually plural. And we have vous. Vous also means you. So this is the one you use for more than one person, so recall that this first you we have here, we use it for one person. This one here, we use it for more than one person. We also use this for one person that we want to accord a respect. So if you want to accord respect to someone, you can use vous to address them. Or if you're in a formal environment, you can use this as you. Okay? And this is usually seen as plural for your plural nouns. And the next is il. This means they. And this usually goes for masculine plural nouns. And we have the last, they as well. This is the one you use for feminine plural nouns. So all of these are your subject pronouns in French. So the next thing we are going to be looking at is verb conjugation. So, but before we look at the verb conjugation itself, there is something I want to talk about here. And that is to understand how to go about verb conjugation in a very easy manner. And that would lead me to talking about what we call terminations, or les terminations if it is in French. But before we go to terminations, I want to start by classifying the verbs. And the reason is that the various classes of verbs have their different terminations. So the classes of verbs we have, this is my own classification to make the comprehension easy. Another tutor can classify their own in another way. So we have what we call the first group verbs. They are also known as ER verbs, because most of these verbs have their ending as ER, like the suffix attached to them are usually ER. Then we have the second group verb. Most of their endings are IR. And we have the third group verbs. These are made up of verbs with IR and RE as their ending. Then we have the irregular verbs. These are the verbs that change in form when we transform them or when we conjugate them. So these are the classes of verbs that we are going to be dealing with. So we're going to be starting with the first one, which is the first group verbs. So the first group verbs have terminations. Terminations are more like what the suffix become after conjugation. Suffix is the last attached word or a last attached letters to a word. So we have, for example, the verb to sing. The verb to sing in French is known as chanter. And by the way, before I go on to conjugate this verb, did you know that most of our English verbs that end with ate, that have their suffix as ate in English, this is what I mean. Indicate, implicate, educate, fabricate, dictate, and so on and so forth. They are all French verbs, and these are their French alternatives. Indicate, in French, we call it indiquer. Q-U-R. Implicate, in French, we call it impliquer. Educate, in French, we call it éduquer. With accent. Fabricate, we call it fabriquer. And dictate, we call it dicter. So you can see that you can actually start from learning most of your verbs in English that you identify that have their ending as ate and begin to find their alternatives. That way, that will help you to bridge the gap in your knowledge and help you to also speed up the time as far as acquiring as new words as possible in French. All right, so let's start with our verb conjugation for the verb to sing. So, but before we start that conjugation, I want to talk about what we call terminations. So in French, the terminations for first group verbs says that for je, the first person subject pronoun, that the ending is e. For tu, the ending of your verb will be es. For il, l, or on or an on, the ending will be e. Okay? For nous, the ending will be ons. And for vous, the ending after conjugation should be ez. And for il or l, the plural, the ending after conjugation should be ent. So, having that at the back of our mind, so let's conjugate this verb to sing, which is chanter. So I want to say, I sing, or I am singing. So we will pretend as though we will discard this. I also want to mention something here. When you see a verb like this raw verb that hasn't been conjugated, in French we call it infinitive. Infinitive is an unconjugated verb, a raw verb. So the next thing we are going to do, we'll pretend as though we are going to discard this, the ER. So I sing. Here is the stem. Then the appropriate termination for the first person, je, is E. I add E. So this gives you, I sing. This is also, I am singing. The two. Okay, then, pardon me, I do not have the best of handwritings when it comes to the whiteboard. So you sing or you are singing to, you take the termination, you add it here. The il, l, and on, they have e. So this means he sings. It also means she sings. It also means one sings. And we have the nous Determination is ONS. We add it. This is we sing. It also means we are singing. And the vous, determination is EZ. You sing, it is also you are singing. And the last but not the least, the plural, they sing. This means they sing or they are singing. And this is almost exactly what you would do with majority of your first group verb. So let me take another verb. We have this verb, changer. Changer, from its name, the English verb you know, means to change. Now, please note that majority of the verbs in French that have G before the ER, the terminations always have a very different approach when you come to the new form of your subject pronoun. And I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. So I want to say I change or I am changing. So I change becomes je change. You add E. This means I change. It also means I am changing. You change to change. I added the ES. You change or you are changing. He changes. So I'm only going to be using il because the three of them are the same thing. So there is no point really repeating all of them. So he changes, it changes, we change, she changes, il change. Then when it comes to the new, we will not do this and add OMS. The rule says leave the E, because if you remove it, the pronunciation is going to affect the pronunciation. So most verbs in French that have got G before ER, this kind of thing always happens with them. So this is we change. It's also we are changing. And you change, vous changez. You change is also the same thing as you are changing. And the last but not the least, il change. See the way I pronounced it? Il change. I didn't say changeant. Most French beginners make the mistake of pronouncing this as ENT. As much as ENT, you pretend as though the pronunciation ends here. As a matter of fact, for most of your first group verbs, you pronounce the first one and the last one same way. So this is je change, this is il change. So this last one, il change, which means they change, or it can also mean they are changing. So this is how we conjugate our verbs, especially when it comes to first group verbs. So I would like you to put in the comment section any of the first group verbs that you can actually identify, especially coming from your English verbs that end with ATE. Try to conjugate them by yourself. And to wrap up today's class, I would like to also mention that whether you are using an Android phone or you are using any device, look for this app called Le Conjugate. That will help you in the conjugation of your verb. And this is where we are going to be ending our class for today. I hope you have learned something new today, especially as it relates to how to conjugate your verb from one subject pronoun to the other. Until I see you in my next video. Bye for now. Au revoir.